Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday Western U.S. regional forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, there's no doubt that over the last couple of weeks, in fact, stretching much beyond this, we've seen some incredibly dry air. So just bringing this map back up after showing it to you yesterday in the larger analysis we did, and just to see how dry things have been. There have been places in the West United States that I can find that have not had rain, not just over the last 14 days or the last 30 days, but some locations going back way beyond that through middle of summer, especially down here in parts of California. And so the question is it's the same question we're trying to answer: is the pattern going to change, and when is it going to change? Now, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself when I show you this next graph, but I want to at least make a point here about what we have to talk about. We have seen the pattern setting itself up to favor, this trajectory that brings storm systems here into Alaska or brings them into British Columbia. We do finally see some things starting to change, and I think a lot of you watching this, especially those of you in California, going, wait a minute, what in the world is going on down here? And we got to talk about that because this is a 10-day precipitation map from the European model, and we know that with time, once we get out past 3, 4, 5, 6 days, model accuracy drops off, and this is a feature we're talking about next week. So this is out beyond this week in forecasting, but it was a very interesting model transition we saw over the last 24 hours or so, and it's something that we need to be talking about because there's good reason to be seeing this particular feature happen, and let's get into some of the details here, okay? Now, in the near term, we're still dealing with this pattern that is split. It is broken in the Gulf of Alaska, sending its storm systems away from the west coast, and we still have our stagnant air advisories. These are air stagnation advisories out here by the National Weather Service. And so while we're dealing with this penetrating cold front that's getting all the way to the southeast, the warm air that is not moving very much, that's racing here up the west coast of the United States, again, is giving us those advisories. Now take a look at the differences here. The main cold frontal boundary, by the way, which is sending freezing temperatures all the way into the northern part of Florida, well, that cold front actually extends all the way to the Yucatan Peninsula by the time we get to this evening. Meanwhile, you can see how not windy things are in the western side of the United States. And much of our big low pressure system activity, all of them are being generated here in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean, getting into the Bering Sea. And that pattern where we're sending systems like this, protecting with a large ridge that's been sitting in this area for quite some time, I think that pattern might break down a few times as we get out over the next, especially over the next month. And so let's talk about this and figure out what it is we need to be paying attention to. Now, first of all, in the near term, we actually do have some precipitation working in this morning. I paused this here at about 9 a.m. West Coast time to show you this little band of precipitation that will be coming through the coastal parts of Washington, but the northern part here of Oregon, kind of clipping the northern part of the Willamette Valley. And there's not much snow with this one because the snow is really going to be confined to much higher elevations given how warm it is. But we could be getting some enhanced precipitation as the air gets lifted here over the Blue Mountains and on this side of the Columbia Basin and then getting through northern Idaho. So outside of that region, you can kind of see it snaking across here. We're not bringing precipitation into the Snake River Valley, and it's certainly not getting into Northern California or any section of California. Just this quick little pulse coming through here. And in Montana, we're going to have to watch out. It's relatively warm, but on the northern side of this, we could be turning this over to some snow by the time we get into late this evening. And that system moves out, and then we're dry for a few days. So you don't see much on here as I work our way into the middle of the day on Thursday. Okay, but from there, I need to now show you the upper level pattern. We're going to have the GFS ensemble over here on the left, okay, and the European ensemble over here on the right. And what we're going to watch for is what we call in atmospheric sciences a wave breaking event. Now, certainly we can see that both models are favoring ridging in the upper levels of the atmosphere throughout much of this week. But it is the pattern that I want you to watch develop between British Columbia here and the Baja that is going to be quite important for our longer range forecast. So as we get through the middle of the week, this is now valid, basically through Thursday afternoon, Friday evening. As we let the pattern kind of advance forward, we see the ridge really getting reestablished. But this is where things start to change a little bit. What a wave break is when the ridge kind of, almost like a wave on the ocean, kind of breaks over the top of a low to the south. Now, we oftentimes call these high over low patterns, but usually the high over low pattern is stacked north-south. If the ridge breaks completely over the trough, such that now they're oriented where the ridge is northeast and the trough is to the southwest. That's a much different configuration. So here we're stacked up by the time we get into Sunday, high over low, both models seeing a very similar picture, but I want you to watch the European. You see the GFS stacked right up one on top of the other. The European is already starting to see that slant. So see it? There's the ridge, and the trough is coming back a bit farther to the south and west. Because once we get out here to Monday morning, now we've got the wave break already happening in the European, and it's beginning to happen in the GFS. And as I press forward, this is where things get interesting. You see this trough in through here? This is now by next Wednesday on the 20th. That elongated trough, it's a little bit more severe here, I would say, in terms of its rendition that the GFS has. So I'll be honest with you, I've been keying in on the European. I think you should just watch over here on the right with me. When this happens, you know, this trough that gets elongated here, we end up developing a pretty substantially deep low that comes over this part of California. Now I'm 10 days out in the forecast almost, really 8 to 10 days out before I see this happening. But this high over low wave break situation is what's making this possible. And all this does is this finally brings in the moisture off of the Pacific. Rather than diverting it, it brings it here into California. And this could be the first substantial rains for some folks in a very, very long time. Now, as I get out here to day 12, the models have completely diverged on their solutions. You can see the European keeping a broader ridge here, whereas the GFS wants to bring in a big, broad, sweeping trough and really make things wet for the western United States. That's too far out to diagnose at this point. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm getting so much model difference here in the ensembles, and usually we don't get this much. But here out in the ensembles, we see quite a bit of difference. The good news is, this particular pattern, once we get into the end of the 3rd week of November and start the 4th week of November, is a pattern that is not as strongly blocked over the Pacific Ocean. It seems to be relaxing. It seems to be becoming a bit more zonal. And I hope it's not just because the use of ensembles washes out the details. That sometimes happens, but there are some good reasons why this should be happening. I'm going to share with you one of them here in a few minutes. So let's see what this means in terms of precipitation. So let's go right over to our European model here. So this is Tuesday morning. That's the system I just talked about. Real quick, talked about that system getting through by Wednesday. Then we spend much of the rest of this week, Thursday morning into Friday morning, dry. Okay. But what we notice is that by the end of the week, getting into Friday midday, we do get another quick push. A little front sneaks through here, hits coastal Oregon and Washington, and possibly gets over the mountains here. Remember, the Columbia Basin, it's hard to get precipitation in here, so the model may be missing out on the elevation effects, but certainly getting the air to rise again as we get over here like towards Spokane and the Blue Mountains to the south of there, like the Palouse region, we could possibly get a little bit of precipitation coming through that area, skirts through northern Idaho again. So that's now. Let me get you to Saturday morning. Okay, after this point, big push of precip here into British Columbia, Saturday night. We see that trying to again sneak through by Sunday afternoon and evening. But after this, the big change is happening farther south. Look at this. This is now Tuesday, midnight Monday, Tuesday morning. And look at what comes through Northern California by next Tuesday evening. Now the upper level low is taking shape right down here. This is Wednesday morning next week. This is next week, just make sure you understand. And look at what happens by the time we get into next Wednesday evening into Thursday morning. Now, please understand, while we do see this in the ensemble forecast as well, this is not locked in stone, what you see right here. I'm asking you to be watching every day this week so that I can continue to cover the development of this system, because we're out here in a day 10 forecast with an operational model, and that can be very, very misleading, and a lot can change between now and then. So I know you can't see me, but I'm sitting here with my hands folded as if I was praying, asking you to just watch this with me throughout this week, because I want to understand that I'm calling for a substantial pattern change here, and I have good reason to say that it is coming. And we're going to talk about that again in the long-range forecast tomorrow, but just watch with me. Okay, that's all I'm asking. All right, what about our ensembles in terms of precipitation? Well, this is where I get a little bit more support. This is only looking at week 2, GFS on the left, European on the right. You can see that, yes, drier conditions in through here in both models, all right? But remember, we do have precipitation coming. It's just drier than what we should be getting this time of year. But you can see right in through there, looking at the GFS, and right in through here, looking at the European. Both of them are hinting at some sort of upper level trough development here coming through the southern half of California. All right, so it's at least showing up in the ensembles. Let's watch it together. Now, in terms of temperatures, we are getting what you had, especially in the Pacific Northwest, 2 weeks ago. And if you look over here on the other side of the Rocky Mountains, temperatures departure from normal today as much as 40 degrees in some locations. We will continue to see 10 to 15 degrees above average in California, Nevada, and southern Oregon. A little bit cooler than average in parts of Columbia Basin here for the day on Tuesday. But if I play this forward, let's take a look at Wednesday's departure from normal. This getting into Thursday. And Friday, the story kind of stays the same, 5 to 15 degrees warmer than average up the west coast of the United States. Sunday's departure from normal, getting into Monday and Tuesday of next week, or at least through Monday of next week. So looking out beyond that, let's just look at days 6 through 10. We can see that both models picking up on a very similar pattern. We hang on to our warmer bias across the western half of North America. But days 11 through 15, see the cooler showing up in here, see the cooler showing up in there. That is a reflection of that trough I mentioned a few moments ago. So that's kind of a big deal for the western part of the United States, and I'm excited to be able to analyze it this week and report to you what I'm able to find. And in long-range video tomorrow, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We are seeing slowly the the waning of the much below average precipitation here for Northern California through Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. That's slowly changing out into the week 3. And as we watch the subtropical jet stream kind of crank up, I think as we move toward the beginning of December, we need to discuss why that's happening and what the significance is of this much colder air that's sitting over parts of Siberia. Combine that with the warm water that is, compared to average, the warm water that's in the Arctic. This is going to really influence our pattern moving forward. I'll diagnose all of it for you, put it in the long-range forecast tomorrow, and that'll be the next time I get a chance to talk to you. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.